Welcome to Spirit Journey Collective. I'm your host, Sarah Ty. Get ready for compelling conversations with guests of all walks of life who believe they have found their purpose. Together, we will uncover unique backstories, hearing the raw experiences that led them to the work they are doing today. Let's expand our minds together with the captivating stories and inspiration that awaits. Welcome back to Spirit Journey Collective. I have a really exciting guest today. Her name is Karla Elizondo. She is a psychotherapist, a mindset coach, content creator. She's got a lot to share today, and I'm really excited to dive in. So thank you so much for being here, Karla.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. I am so excited. I just adore you, and I am so grateful to be here, and I'm so excited for your new podcast.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you're one of my first, so I appreciate your support. And I think that our listeners are really going to just take a lot from you today. So I know that every time I connect with you, I always learn too. So I'm very excited. With all of the things that you do, you have a lot going on. Let's just start with a little bit of a backstory, like who you are, what you do, like maybe a little more in detail, and what you offer.
So, my name is Karla Elizondo, and born and raised in Southern California. And so, right now, I am a therapist, psychotherapist, and a mindset coach. And so, my main goal really is to help others unblock, get rid of all of the fear, all of the programming that holds them back from truly living life. Because I feel like, if you can relate, because I sure did, we find ourselves in these kind of slumps and ebbs and flows, which are natural in life, but what gets us out of them? What gets us out of them? So just a very long story short, from a young age, I was always so outgoing. I love to express. I love to talk. I got in a big trouble for talking too much in school. But it was when I was around 11 or 12 that I really first felt depression, like a really heavy depression. I didn't know what it was at the time, but that kind of led me on my journey to kind of turning within, being prayerful, asking the big questions. What's the meaning of life? What is this scary feeling I have? What is this hopelessness I feel? And so I started diving into the world of psychology, personal development at a very young age, meaning how did that look? Well, I would look at books of spirituality and what are the answers and what happens after we die and what's my purpose? And so really just asking big questions, and we all get there at different points in life. But that kind of led me on my journey of personal development, spiritual development, self-discovery, and I've never stopped since. So I have done all the coaching. I love all the different people out there, their different personalities, their different perspectives on life, because I don't believe there's just one. It's infinite. And so I'm an internal student. And so now I just teach what I learn and what has been helpful for me. I'm going to be 41 this year. I can't believe it. So I really started this journey. I started taking my personal development journey seriously at around 19 years old. So it's been a couple decades, and I've overcome, like I said, depression, anxiety definitely ran in my family, and I still have to keep that under wraps. But that's really another big point of my journey was when I had anxiety, I used to use alcohol to cope. So I used to drink to cope. I've been sober for almost 5 years now, so I'm so excited about that. And that's just a little bit about my journey overcoming depression, anxiety, addiction, my own spiritual, personal development journey, and teaching others how to do that. So
That's amazing. And I did I hear you correctly that you started kind of doing personal development around 12 when that is
you
so
don't, yeah, and you
young.
don't know it is that at that age, but
Right.
yeah, I was in the self-help aisle at Barnes and Noble, at 12 years
At
old.
12 years old. Wow. So I guess I have a question about that. I mean, did you feel like you had support back then? Like when you were dealing with that, were you surrounded by family and friends who were able to, I mean, maybe not friends because they were also so young, but did you have that help to kind of guide you in the right direction?
This was back in the early 90s, so no one knew I didn't even know that I was depressed. I just knew that I was seeking answers, and I didn't, and I did have a supporting, loving family, but I did not share what I was going through, which most teenagers and young kids don't, because I don't want to scare anybody. I didn't even know what I was going through. I didn't want to be seen as weird or worrisome or be a burden. So I just kind of silently sought on my own at the library or at the, bookstores. Although I had love and support just in my family at home, I didn't share. I would say my saving grace was I was raised Catholic, and it was a beautiful experience for me. I know not everybody has the same experience with any religion, but I was very lucky. It was never forced upon me. It was a very just introduction to this life of spirituality, the introduction to a higher power, God as I call it, prayer life, how to go within, and just have that one-on-one relationship with God. And that's what I leaned on a lot during that time. So I'd say that was my support.
Wow, yeah, because that's just so young. I can't imagine because I probably went through something similar, maybe a little bit older than you. I definitely went through most teenagers have those like dark and angsty, like, what
Mhm.
am I feeling and all of that. But I just can't imagine navigating that at 12. But it sounds like you almost were being prepared for what you do now back then without even knowing it. You were just
Yeah.
seeking. And how many children at that age are willing to seek?
Yeah.
And try and understand the psyche and all of that. It really sounds like you were being called into this work without even knowing it.
Really. And I would encourage anybody listening, think about around the age when you were 11 or 12. That's kind of when we start to even ask, it might not have been big fat questions like me falling into a depression or whatever. That's usually when we start seeing kind of going towards the things we're interested in. It's really good to reflect on that.
I will be doing that because now I'm curious what I was doing around that age. So, with what you shared, I mean, again, you're doing so much work really around helping people find themselves, it sounds like, finding their confidence and their sense of self and working through things that are holding them back from that sense of self. What would you say your purpose is?
Wow. Just as you said that, you literally described the definition of my human design. We talked about this. So, if you haven't heard of human design, it's basically a self discovery tool, and it's kind of calculated and based on your time and place of birth and date and all that. So, it's a mix of kind of astrology and all sorts of things. It's a whole thing in its own. But if you know, you know. And so, according to human design, there's 192 life themes or life purposes or paths, and they can unfold in any way. My life purpose is to show people direction, to show people clarity, to tell them this is like, I just have that gift of kind of knowing based on what they're talking about. These are your gifts, these are your talents. Go in that direction, live your design, live your blueprint, live your purpose. We can take it or leave it. But I see, my life, your life, all of our life, there's a blueprint. And there's so many different plans that we can explore and develop. And we don't have to develop them all, but they're just there just to let you know this is actually in the blueprint. So for me, my purpose is to educate, inspire, encourage, entertain. I'm a naturally goofy person. I love to share and perform, and you've seen my, goofy faces and how I express. So just kind of making light of this whole journey of the human condition. Like, I love existential therapy as well, exploring what is life, but making light of it a little bit. I think personal development and therapy can be heavy at times. It can be so serious, and it's like, let's lighten up a little bit. Let's lighten up a little bit. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start with that. There are so many good things I would touch on. For starters, thank you for bringing up human design. For anyone that's listening who has no idea what that is, I highly recommend checking it out. You just need to know your birth time, your birth date, the city you're born in, and you're welcome. That's all I have
Yeah.
to say is once you check it out, I'm still learning so much about it. But for me, it was like someone was recognizing me for the first time, and I was finally able to see why I'm doing what I'm doing, and why I was called into being a tarot reader and helping guide people similarly to you. You're helping others see who they are through you, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And
Yeah.
what I do is more like I help shine a light on the areas they need to know most about to focus on. It's like different aspects of similar things, I guess. So I love that you brought up human design, but I also love that you brought up making light of this journey that we're on, because people think of spiritual healing or they think of personal development or they think of therapy and they immediately think it has to be serious and it has to be heavy. And it can be, it absolutely can be, but learning to carry it or set it down in times when you can set it down or find the light in it so it's not so heavy. One of the things that I actually teach when I do my readings, a lot of the times when I'm dealing with someone who's going through like a dark night of the soul, I'll get a
Mhm.
lot of hints of find your play, find your creativity,
Yeah.
find ways to step away from it for a little bit. So you're not just living in that dark space because it can
Mhm.
get kind of dark. It's
Yeah.
worth it. You're working towards the light, but sometimes we need that break. And play is one of those things that I don't think is talked about enough. I just love that that's part of what you do is you almost teach people it's okay to be goofy. And I, for one, struggle with that. I'm a perfectionist, is what my therapist told me. And when I first heard that, I thought, I am kind of a cluttered person. What do you mean I'm a perfectionist? And then I realized, no, you like to show up a certain way because you're
Mm.
afraid of rejection and you're afraid of being
Judgment.
loose in judgment. Yes. So that's one
Mhm.
of my challenges. And I will say I'm really inspired by the fact that you can just be yourself and just be,
Yeah.
silly when you want to be. It's
Right.
inspiring to those of us who struggle with that. So
Well, I did
I
too.
love that.
Yeah, just know that it wasn't always like this. It wasn't until like the last year or two that I was like, living unapologetically. We throw that word out, but it's different than, just saying it and doing it. It's like, do you live unapologetically? Are you 100 proof, I say? Or are you just giving us 20%? Are you just giving us like some curated version? Or are you just letting it rip?
I love that. That is a great question because I think most of us are kind of operating from that 20,
Mhm.
30% mark.
That was me for 35 years.
And, it sounded like too, releasing alcohol in your life was a big part of you stepping
It
into that
was.
as well.
Yeah,
Is that
life
correct?
changing. Life changing. I always say there's always 1 degree. We all have 1 degree. And whatever your 1 degree is going to throw you off your path, your purpose, your full potential. So for me, alcohol was my 1 degree. It was the habit that I hid in, it was the habit I escaped with, it was the habit that I just let me throw me off my path. And I think we highly underestimate what throws us off our path. There was a recently coffee creamer in the morning was throwing me off my path. And it's all personal. It's because it's like I have health goals, fitness goals. And I knew that my 1 degree was like I was unwilling to let go of my creamer in my coffee in the morning. But I knew for me, I was like, Karla, if you just let that go, I think you would see more result. And I did. I let it go in November last year. So it's been November, December, 2.5 months. I've already like effortlessly lost like 3 to 5 pounds. And so it was a little switch. So I encourage everybody, like, what's your 1 degree? For me, alcohol was my 1 degree, but it was huge. So I always say, picture you're at the port of Long Beach and you're setting sail. So you're going towards your life, towards your goals. This is all metaphor. But if you get your compass and you get the coordinates to arrive in Hawaii, you have your coordinates. So all you have to do is make sure your compass is headed towards Hawaii. But if you're off 1 little degree, you're going to end up so far away in the middle of the Pacific Ocean just because you're off 1 degree. So the further we continue life, holding on to that 1 degree, the further we get from our dream destination, our purpose. And so darkness, whatever you want to call it, in our own negativity, our limiting beliefs, don't hold us back in big ways. And they might not be super obvious. But it's like one of my friends said, she had a pastor friend who said, they use like the demon, the devil, the darkness, hold you back in this way. But this is just anything. It's like, it doesn't like go like, hey, go over here. It's like, it literally just like taps you ever so slightly. And we don't see that. We see it in the long term, like, oh my God, it's been 5 years, it's been a decade. I've been doing everything right. I'm a good person. Why isn't my life full unfolding like it should be? Because we weren't paying attention to the little things, the 1 degrees in our life. And for me, growing up in my 20s, I was in LA, like alcohol is just a part of social life. It's a part of vacations. It's a part of this. It's like, but I knew deep in my soul that it zapped my energy. It fogged up my mind. It literally causes depression and it exacerbates anxiety, which was what I struggled with. So I was like, what if I didn't have this? And it was the scariest thing, hardest thing, but I am so grateful every single day and I can't tell you how happy I am. So that was my 1 degree. And yeah, you're right. When I eliminated that from my life, oh my God, it was like a whole new world.
What you're really speaking to is when you're living in alignment versus when you're not. And we can be mostly in alignment and have that one thing that's just
Yeah.
not there, and that's what we need to focus on, either letting go, healing, working through. And I think awareness is such a big piece too, is when you're aware of how certain things affect you, it's a little easier to say, oh my gosh, this is taking me the wrong direction. But when you're not aware, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things that people struggle with on a day to day is staying aware and mindful. It's so
Mhm.
easy to let that 1 degree
Mhm.
kind of shift you in the direction you're not really wanting to go.
Being honest with yourself, because I was like, because I kept getting the whispers and the little things, but I was like, how can she do it? Why do these people get to just party and have fun and their life doesn't, like, they're living, they're successful. How can they drink and I can't? It's like, it doesn't matter, Karla. I had to be honest with myself. This for me doesn't work. And so everything you said, awareness is key, but also honesty, taking that fearless moral inventory, as they say in the 12 steps.
And you can't compare yourself to others because everyone's journey is different and you don't actually know how in line with their own successes they are. They might look like it on on the outside, but they could be struggling with a depression or their own, inner circle problems. So yeah, I love to teach that too with my tarot. There's a certain card that comes up that literally says, keep your eyes on your own paper, stay in your own lane, and don't worry about what everyone else is doing because everyone's on their own individual journey.
Mhm.
And so I also want to touch to what you're saying too about alcohol and how it's such a socially accepted drug, basically, right? It's a drug and it's socially
Mhm.
acceptable. And I went through my own cleansing a
Oh
few
yeah,
years
you
ago.
mentioned that. You told me.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sober like you are to that point, but I
Right.
very rarely drink. But back then it was like a glass of wine a night, sometimes two if it was a rough day.
Mhm.
And I was a single mom, and what I heard from all my friends was, "You're a single mom. Your kid is still alive. You got her in bed. You survived the day. Have that glass of wine. You deserve it." It
Mhm.
was like it was a reward for getting through the day. I wasn't even looking to stop drinking. That's the other thing is it wasn't even in my scope of like focus, but I had just started a spiritual journey like shortly right around that time, and I wasn't ready to dive into the quote woo woo. um what the really like human design or astrology. I wasn't ready to go really into that direction yet. The podcast that I found is called Expanded, and they focus a lot on hypnotherapy and healing inner child work, shadow work. And so I was like, let me do this work. And that's when I just clear as day, my intuition like talked to me on a random Tuesday, random day. I was putting groceries away. I'd already set up for this course, and clear as day, I heard, if you want to do this work, you cannot keep alcohol in the house. And I was very confused. What? Huh? What? Why? I don't understand. I'm not an alcoholic. I know because my father is one and I don't do what he does, and it doesn't affect my life. But I was curious enough to listen because I didn't really understand where that came from. And the first thing that happened was I got hit with a bunch of anxiety and panic attacks that I didn't realize was underneath the surface the whole time. And so that was a big deal for me was I listened, and now I understand that alcohol just it's not good for you. It's all the things that you're mentioning. And then even when I do occasionally have a drink or two, the next day I always regret it. Even if it's just one drink, the first one out of several months, I'm always like, oh, my body's like, why? Why did you do
Mhm.
that?
And I think it's important. I'm glad you said that because, again, anybody listening, if you don't know me from Adam, you probably don't. But I was not, quote, an alcoholic either, but I used alcohol to cope. So they call that like disordered drinking or alcohol abuse disorder, would binge drink every now and then. And as I got older in my 30s, like I didn't take shots or go to the bar anymore. It was the glass of wine at night or the 2 glasses on a Wednesday because I had a rough day. You don't have to be an alcoholic to have a problem with alcohol, but you have to be aware of how it affects your spirit because they call it wine and spirits. They don't call it spirits for nothing.
Yep.
Because you are literally inviting in, who knows, different energies that are unconscious, subconscious, that are not of your spirit or soul. So it's a lot deeper than just a glass of wine. It's like, how is it affecting me? And I think it really clouds intuition because it shuts off a parts of our brain. It shuts off our connection with self, because that's really what we're afraid of, I find, for me. So I think it's important to share that, like, I was not some raging alcoholic. I was successful. I had a higher degree, education. I was money, everything looked cute, right? But it was just a question too. I journal a lot, and I was asking myself deep questions. It was right before my birthday, and I said, what can I give myself? What is a gift? And I heard as clear as day. I was in the hallway and closet. I was putting towels away, and it was like, stop drinking for a year, because I had heard stop drinking before, but I didn't listen to it. But I heard just for a year. And I was like, why? And I had known that. I was like, okay, fine. For a year, I'll do it. So I started with just a challenge to not drink for a year, which turned into almost 5 years now. So everything Sarah's saying, listen. Listen. Don't be afraid to listen and obey. That's what I always say. Don't just listen, but obey.
Right. Yeah. Because I could have just as easily been like, why? I'm going to keep drinking. This isn't a problem. And I would
Mhm.
not be where I am today. That is for sure.
Same,
Because
same.
it's how I found my tarot work, how I found my spirituality. And that's what taught me to listen, which I wasn't listening before. I didn't even know there was something to listen to
I
before.
would just scream. I would scream at God. I would scream at life. I would scream at everybody in my head and out loud and on my journal. But did I ever listen? No, because I was afraid of what I'd hear. I'm like, I feel like God or the universe or whatever was going to tell me something I didn't want to hear. Like, Karla, you should be a nun and stop wearing makeup, and you're supposed to be single and celibate for your whole life. It's like, we're afraid that God or the universe or whatever life, that we're not going to get what we want. And we're afraid to listen and accept. But the truth is that if we really do listen and accept, it's going to be not only what we want and dream, but beyond our wildest dreams. But it's hard to have the faith because we don't have proof.
It's time to take a short break from our wonderful speaker. Are you in the need of guidance around love, career, family, life, or purpose? Embark on a spiritual journey inward with an intuitive tarot reading. Depending on what you're needing and looking for, I offer private one-on-one sessions as well as personalized email readings. It doesn't matter what the question is. A reading with me provides connection with your higher self, offering curated personal messages, or what I like to refer to as spiritual roadmaps, guiding you to the future outcome you desire. Readings are insightful and affordable. If you'd like more information or to schedule a reading with me, please see the link below. So coming back to what you do for work, what is it that lights you up the most? I know that there's a few different things that you offer, but I'm sure that there's like a key thing out of all those that lights you up, like that you can combine.
Wow. I would say the thing that lights me up the most is seeing people switch from fear to faith, believing in themselves. That's believing, knowing, seeing them, like I say, take my eyeballs and see you through my eyeballs. You're amazing. You're fantastic. You are full of potential. You can do it. Like feeling that vibratory shift of like, oh my God, I see it now. I'm still scared and I still don't know how I'm going to do it, but I believe you. I don't believe it, but I believe, Karla, that you believe it. So I'm going to lean on your faith. So when people switch to fear to faith and they start operating from that vibration and that frequency versus the fearful, anxious, doubtful, limiting belief, that's what lights me up. And then they start taking that inspired action from that standpoint when they just really believe in themselves.
That is amazing. We need more Karlas in the world. Like truly. And and I can say that even though like how I met you, it's not necessarily through your work. I think that you carry that with you. That thing that you're talking about when you work with your clients. I feel like that's just something that you just give to the world, which perfectly aligns with what my definition of purpose is. I think that purpose is when you do something that just lights you up. It just gives you, it's so rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives back to the world. Like you have to have the both and, right? It has to give you something and it has to give the world something. And people think a lot of the times, oh, my purpose is something that I have to do for work. And it's not. It's so much more than that. And I mean, absolutely tie it into your work, because I think that when you love what you do, it's not really work anymore, right? But when you're able to really hone in on what your purpose is, you could do it every day, even if you're not going to work that day, right? Just going out in the world and showing other people how they look in your eyes in that really positive, inspiring way. So I do mean that. We need more Karlas in the world. And I just love that. So I want to start doing something in my podcast episodes that I hope my listeners will get really excited about, called Synchronicity Story Time, because I love synchronicities. They're just so cool. And especially when it pertains to finding your purpose too, because I think that, we there are synchronicities out there every day, but a lot of the times it's breadcrumbs from the universe guiding you to where you're supposed to be, which I think that we're all meant to find a purpose on a certain level. So do you have any fun synchronicity stories that lets you know that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing?
You know what? It's so funny. I think we all have a relationship with like signs. For me, for whatever reason, finding pennies on the ground or anywhere, random places. And I found pennies show up random. That's my sign that I'm on my path. And just yesterday, okay, so I was walking in the park. I want to find a penny. Every time I'm looking for a penny, I don't find a penny. But every time one shows up, I'm like, yeah, little God wink, I call it. And I was like, I'm not just going to find a penny. I'm going to find a pile of pennies, or like 3 pennies or something, just like a sign. It doesn't have to be today, but whatever. Last night I was at the mall and there was 3 pennies just sitting randomly on a counter. I was like, like I know that I'm in alignment and in my flow. But when it comes to synchronicities, like those are kind of more signs. But yeah, I think there's I'll have to think about that and we can talk about it next time. But when it comes to synchronicities, just when the time lines up, when things perfectly. Oh, here's one. So I love to, I don't know if this is synchronicity, but it's kind of like a God wink to me, but I always wanted to have my own little, when I started the group private practice, like own little studio and create conscious content therapeutically. And so I was sitting there, I was like, what do I really want? Like, I didn't want to be a full-time therapist. So I'm a part-time therapist, part-time, mindset coach and content creator. And so I was like, I would love to create like a little studio here and create their content. There was no job offering, none whatsoever. And I was like, what do I want? And so I created this whole job listing, like, I'm going to be the social media director of Talk Therapy Center, the place that I work for. And so I put down a whole job description, made it up on my own, like, this is what I would love to do. And so when I went in for the interview and the boss is like, okay, well, this is new. We're not expecting this, but you can be hired as a therapist if you want. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. 8 months later, he offers me that job, gives me my own little like studio place. And so it was just like, you build it in your mind, you have faith. But because I felt stupid when I had it, I was like, I can't show it to him. He's going to think I'm nuts. This guy's going to think I'm crazy. How dare I ask him? But if you listen, if you're aware and you obey and you just do it, you put yourself out there, even if you're scared of being made fun of or looking foolish. Because I was shot down. He's like, no, lady, I don't know who you are, but we're not looking for a social media. We're looking for a therapist. If you want that job, you can have it. So I think it wasn't a coincidence that I worked there and he was the one that gave me the opportunity. So synchronicities for me is just like, I think I have them all through my life and just meeting the right people at the right time. But you have to be open, get rid of anything that's throwing you off track. And that's when you'll be more in sync.
I love that. Yes, I would definitely call that a synchronicity story because things did line up and it was, you were moving in alignment. You were making mindful decisions, even though they were scary, right? You had to do a little bit of leaps of faith along the way of just jumping and saying, well, I don't know if he's thinking I'm crazy, but I'm going to put this out there. And obviously you basically what you did was you planted a seed.
That's exactly what it is.
And you planted a seed that was given to you initially because you really thought, what do I want? What is it that I want? And not only that, I feel like this was probably that whole idea probably wasn't even just from you. It probably was, downloaded through you because it's just the way everything lined up. It was like it was given to you, and then you really liked this idea, and this is what I would love to do. You presented it. It was not the right timing, or was it?
I know.
Because it sounds like it was. It just wasn't. It was planting the seed. It had to be tended to before it was ready to come to fruition. And I love that. And I love the penny stories too. And I love how you say that when you look for the pennies, they're not there. But it's when you're not looking for it, but you're open to finding it, that it will show up in the strangest of ways.
Who the hell carries change anymore? And why is this penny on a random chair? I was like, what? It's so wild.
Thank you for sharing that with me. And I love stories like that. You can't make that stuff up. Another reason I love synchronicity stories is even if it's not your story, just hearing it, I don't know about anyone else, but I tend to get like goosebumps and chills because it resonates. I'm like, oh my gosh, I believe their story. It's, like if they're excited, I'm excited. And then it makes me want to look more for those stories.
Do you have one that makes you
I have several. I had one really recently though. This one's a little bit kind of on the sadder note, but I still feel like it was definitely meant for me. This one happened 2 days ago, actually. I just recently started resubscribed for my Premiere Pro editing software because I'm going to be editing for this podcast. And there were old projects that I had been working on prior. And the last project I did was when my grandma passed away. It was a memorial video that I made for her. And so I watched it and got a little teary-eyed and, missing her. She's been gone now for a little over a year. And then I when I'm not doing my tarot work, I also do DoorDash. So I was out dashing and delivering and basically working my day job later on. And I was listening to a podcast where a woman who's a medium from Scotland was being interviewed. Fascinating. I love topics like that. And one thing that she said was, so many people think their loved ones are far, far away. The other side's far, far away, but it's not. It's really time and space doesn't exist. So whenever you think of them or you miss them, they're right there. And she said, if you're not a medium, you could talk to them and they'll hear you, but you may not hear them back because not everyone has that developed skill of hearing spirit. So that brought me some solace. I was like, maybe when I was thinking about her earlier today, she visited me. And so that was a really cool, okay. A few minutes later, I delivered to the address that she had passed away at. Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, I pulled up to do this delivery, and it was just it's a normal house in a normal neighborhood. You wouldn't know it was a nursing home unless you knew it was a nursing home. It just looks like a normal house. And I was pulling up and I was like, why is this house familiar? And then it was like, oh my gosh, the last time I was here was the day that she passed away.
Oh my
And
God.
it just, I cried all over again. But it just, that's how synchronicities work for me, is it has to, because I'm such a skeptic, it has to line up in a way that I can't explain.
Right.
And it was within 5 hours of me watching that video, listening to a medium talking and giving this really sweet advice. And then it delivered to the house that my grandma literally took her last breaths at. And
Wow.
to me, it just felt like, no, my grandma's letting me know she's here. And she's she's
Yeah. She
she's
ordered some
showing me,
DoorDash. She ordered some DoorDash.
right? Or she encouraged one of the nurses there to treat themselves. I don't know.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, so I can't explain it, and I don't want to. I'm just trusting that she was giving me a sign. So, yeah, so I love stories like that. I just, especially the ones you can't explain
They're
rationally
not
even if you
logical. It
tried.
makes no sense. Yeah.
Do you believe that we're all here for a special purpose? Do you think that everyone on this planet is equipped with a purpose of their own?
I do. I do. I feel like we all have gifts and talents and a blueprint, like I said. It's like a blueprint for our life, and we can either fulfill it, fulfill some of it, fulfill part of it. I don't think it's possible to fulfill all of it, but from our human brains, I think it's beyond our scope of our power and our potential. But I do feel like we all are. And if we just even ask ourselves, like, we all are interested in different things. It's like, why do you like what you like? Why are you interested in what you're interested in? Like, why are you drawn to certain things? That shows you, it just draws you towards your purpose and your service and your gift, your potential. So I do feel like all of us have that like compass within us, but it's about understanding it, listening to it, following it, all that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that 100%. I think it's really a matter of, again, that mindfulness and being conscious of what's going
Mhm.
on around us, what's going on inside us. And if you're not conscious or mindful or aware or self-aware, I think some people just aren't able to be in touch with that. And I think everyone's totally capable of finding
Right.
that piece of them. It's just it's everyone's on their own journey, and some and it's, so I hope, and that's like, I love, that's one of the reasons I wanted this podcast. I hope someone listens to this
Mhm.
that never thought of their purpose before, and then suddenly through conversations like this, it makes them think, well, wait a second, what could be my purpose? Why
Oh
am I
yeah.
here? So
Hmm.
that's a big part of like why I'm doing this podcast.
Yep.
So
A
yeah, I
journey of
agree.
knowing yourself. A journey of knowing yourself. Truly, I think that's our only job in life, or like the first purpose really is know thyself. Know thyself, and you shall know the universe and all the gods. That's like a creed on the Oracle Delphi, right? In
Love that.
Greece. It's like self-awareness, personal spiritual development, knowing yourself. That's your only job. Everything else stems from that. So studying yourself.
Yeah. And then through that, you can, just like you are able to, you're able to show up as a mirror for other people. And I think so many people think it's backwards. Like, I'll work on the world, then I'll work on myself. And
You have to live from the inside out. Start with one,
yeah,
then go out. Don't try to live from the and we are lured, we are addicted, we are pulled outward to focus on what's out here, and then it affects how we feel in here. Focus on in here, then open up and do the work out here. Always live from the inside out, not the outside in.
absolutely. Absolutely. So where can our listeners find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, yeah. Anywhere right now, I'm focused on my YouTube. That's my baby. I love YouTube, so it's just my name. If you search Karla Elizondo on YouTube, and I also share on Instagram and TikTok regularly. Other than that, my website, karlaelizondo.com, so my name.com, and those are the main places.
Okay, wonderful. I highly recommend, if anything she shares, resonated with you, you want to work with her. She is truly as amazing as she sounds. And yeah, so don't hesitate to reach out to her. And this conversation was everything I thought it would be and more. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on another inspiring episode. Remember, your purpose is a unique and unfolding path. I hope these conversations have ignited a spark within you. Until next time, keep exploring, growing, and embracing the beautiful adventure of connecting with your purpose. Stay tuned for more meaningful conversations. If you're wanting more, consider joining our free Facebook community called Spirit Journey Collective, your haven for spiritual exploration and personal growth. Dive into a supportive community where sharing spiritual experiences is encouraged. Unlock the power of intuition, embark on a journey of self-discovery, and connect with like-minded souls. If this sounds like a community you'd love to plug into, the link is in the show notes below. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me on this journey.